Hello, welcome to Feedback for the week of March 27th, 2012. Today we're going to talk about Epic Mickey 2, The Power of 2, Assassin's Creed 3. We will not be talking about Quaaludes. All right, everybody, 10 words or less. We're kicking it off. We're going to start with Nicole. Nicole, the category today is favorite boss fights.
I hate to be one-dimensional, but Ganondorf. Sorry.
That's not bad. That's okay. Don't apologize for what you feel. There you go, right there. I'm an enabler. Steven Johnson, what about you?
I liked killing Hitler in Castle Wolfenstein 3D, the original.
Ooh,
Yeah,
way to
wow.
use
Nice.
all
There you go.
options
Yeah.
available to you, sir.
Well done.
Are you going to also get the Sniper V2
Elite.
DLC just so you can kill?
Anytime I can kill Hitler, I do it.
You're the Captain America of G4TV.
Yes, I am.
And we love you for
Oh
it.
no, now that's his new nickname.
Oh, it's gonna be on his business cards.
But hopefully it leads to him actually coming in a skin-tight Captain America suit.
You
So that would be
know-
mad.
can only hope.
As we saw in the feedback theme song video, you look great in skin-tight
spandex?
outfits.
I do.
So
Why are we encouraging this?
because we like sexy stuff here.
Well, that's true.
So there.
Feedback is about
I don't see how those two have anything to do with each
I
other.
was
But
trying to be positive.
All right, Jake. What about you?
giant Bowser at the end of Yoshi's Island.
All right.
All right.
I can't even abuse
I like
the
how
last
Jake,
two. That's
Jake
it.
questioned to see if it was okay for him to finish.
Yeah,
his
I was like,
statement.
couldn't think of
Did
anything else.
cite
You
a
guys
Yoshi
maybe?
game,
Nothing?
so
That's good. That's interesting though that
like
you would
that.
choose that of all, not only of all Mario themed games, but
Of all
of
Bowser's.
games in general.
One of
right?
the most terrifying. I still remember. It's epic. It's a giant wall of Bowser. You're throwing eggs at it. Come on, what can you not love?
And that's epic to you.
That's pretty epic.
All right.
Giant
He has
Bowser.
a thing
Oh,
for
a
eggs.
towering dinosaur. Yeah, it's not epic. No, sorry.
Hitler
is
in a robotic machine gun suit.
That's very true.
I can't
Mine,
really defend Ganondorf.
no, you can't. But there's a small section of people that will fight to their death for your right to have that opinion. And mine would be, I love all my bosses at G4.
Oh,
very nice.
Oh my god,
Well
I'm
done.
late to you.
Wow.
Because I love employment. I love employment. It's all one word. But I mean, I really did think about this. We cheated a little bit. We actually got this topic yesterday because Nicole thought our answers weren't all that great. I'm
Hey,
speculating.
hey.
Was that what happened?
No, you guys were great.
Okay, not very
Wait,
convincing.
you're looking at me.
I was just looking at Steve. I just
as
happened to
if,
be.
as if
Fair enough, you guys. But anyway, we got this yesterday, and I thought about it, and I could not figure out. I mean, there's so many great boss battles that I figured I'd probably just protect my job instead of answering the question truthfully. So that's where I am with that. All right, moving on to video games, Nicole. Epic Mickey 2, The Power of 2. We there's a lot of stuff, information that was released, I believe yesterday or Monday that the embargo was released. But we talked to Warren Spector quite a bit about this game at GDC. Now we're finally able to talk about it. Bring people up to speed on what's happening with Epic Mickey 2.
Well, 2010, Disney Epic Mickey was released. A lot of critics loved it. The fan reception wasn't probably what Disney had hoped for. It was only for the Wii. It starred Mickey Mouse as he tried to find Oswald the Rabbit. So 2 years later, Warren Spector, who don't get confused with Phil Spector because no one thinks that's funny.
Okay.
I just want to do
Warren Spector does
we
not
don't.
murder people.
No, no, yeah. Okay. So
that you know about.
Yes, no.
I don't know what they do down in Texas. It's a foreign land.
Disney Epic Mickey 2, The Power of 2 is the worst name ever because I mess it up every time.
Except for that time.
Well, then you just stopped me from my little spiel. So there was some mess up.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this time around, it's going to be a co-op game with no longer your enemy, Oswald the Rabbit. He is now your bestie. It's going to be local co-op only, which I think is a weird choice. Multiple platforms. Wii, Xbox 360, and PS3. But it sounds like there's no online component. You guys spoke to Warren? Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's only local co-op.
It is going to be only local co-op.
I feel like that's a weird choice to.
They want to
not-
bring people together. It's all about having the
Yeah.
families together.
Getting on
I mean, that was his
Yeah.
big message. I know Jake was in the room when we did the big interview with him, and one of the things I know that he led off with, which was pretty surprising to me, and Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it the best-selling Wii title to date, or I mean, outside of you know, the
Nintendo
that's
stuff.
packed-
It was a pretty, if
like
not the
third-party-
best, it was like up there.
Which
for
is
sure.
shocking. The numbers, and I really enjoyed Epic Mickey, and we gave it a 5 out of 5 here on G4, and I know quite a few people liked it, but the sales numbers, I believe, were quite staggering when you brought them up. And again, we weren't Googling whether or not Warren Spector was lying to us, but unlike Phil Spector, we don't think he murders people in lies, so chances are he was being truthful about that. But he did say, you know, look, we are going multi-platform, which I think is a fantastic idea.
Bigger audience.
Right, but the core component of why he initially started doing the game was to bring people together in the family, and now, you know, they thought initially that would happen using the Wii mode and they could et cetera, but now they want to
Well, there was no
keep people
cooperative in the first one, so I definitely think if that was their goal, this is a good move for them. Also, I think what I really appreciated was that Warren said that they made some mistakes with Epic Mickey, and I played a lot of Epic Mickey 1, and I definitely agreed with the mistakes, and he thought that he was paying homage to silent cartoons by keeping his character silent, but turns out not very engaging characters, especially for a younger audience that isn't familiar with those cartoon characters. And then also the
And
camera
who was
angles.
familiar with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit anyway? No
Mo-
matter what
most
age you
kids
are,
these
you know?
days, most kids, they
Well,
just can't
that
stop
was a
talking about it.
problem,
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think that since then, merchandise for Oswald the Rabbit has gone up. So I mean, that's got to be a good sign.
And
for
by
Disney.
going up, you mean they created it.
And
There
people
is
buying
some.
it.
Yeah. But you know, that is something too that it's pretty interesting that you said that, because he did admit, hey, you know, people really aren't into the silent movies or the silent cartoons, and that was a mistake we made first. So we're going to make a more mainstream game, but this game's going to be a musical.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm a
See-
musical
Jump
theater
past.
geek, and I'm not afraid to admit that, like, I used to live in New York, and like a great Friday and Saturday for me was trying to catch 2 Broadway shows. Like, I love musical theater. I think he's probably, I know, right? Surprising, but he
Okay.
But I also do push-ups, dudes. So don't worry about it.
Good balance.
This
good
isn't
balance.
coffee. This is muscle milk. But
Those are-
but that's a pretty going from, you know, wanting to make a silent cartoon
Yeah.
to wanting to appease musical
Especially
fans.
admitting you're alienating some of your audience, and then being like, "We're gonna fix that by going musical."
Right.
I think though, like
I
even-
love it though. I mean, I
no.
love
Yeah,
it.
more
And the
than
song
the-
he showed was fantastic, and it wasn't even within the context of the game. He's like, "Let me just show you a slice of what we have to offer," and I was like, "That was great," and I have no context for that whatsoever. But again, I love Rent, so what do I know?
more than the co-op and more than the camera angle improvements. That's the thing that stuck out with me the most with this announcement is a musical video game. That's so awesome.
Well, and also,
I mean,
like,
it's so awesome.
If you were going to have a game like a Disney game, would make the most sense because everyone
Sure.
grew up watching musicals and because of Disney. So seeing it here is it's pretty ridiculous. We did see the
It's
this
funny.
scene is pretty
Nicole,
great.
you're not on board, are
Because
you?
there's no one in this room who's seen more Disney movies than I have, and like I know all the songs to like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, and I'm just not on board with this.
Well,
no
what's
sense.
interesting about it is I think that, and it could the songs in the game could be different, but the one that he showed us was less Disney movie song and more musical theater song. So think more Broadway shows and less Anastasia.
I'd like to point out
That's
that
not Disney.
I-
Oh my god.
Anastasia's not Disney?
No, I don't think so.
Really? You
think
better
so.
not be. You better not be wrong here. Otherwise, it's going to be egg
I
on your
know,
face
I
because
know,
I've already
that'd be
admitted
so
I'm not the
embarrassing.
one that watched all the Disney movies.
Well, I
so-
didn't like that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'd like to point out that Nicole is more man than any of us.
It's very true
We're all
right
like
now.
musical theater, all right. And
we
Nicole's
love
like,
it.
No, thank you.
All right, before we expand on that particular statement, Steve, let's go back to the video game because I've embarrassed myself enough as is, and you have no dignity or pride, so you're fine with going down
He's
that
used
path.
to it.
Wow.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
Jeez, Blair, I thought we were friends.
How do
We
you really
are.
feel, Blair?
And that's why we're having this intervention.
Banner.
I'm not
One
going
day
to
it'll bring
rehab.
it.
I'm
The
not
one
going to
day.
rehab.
Now, Jake or Steve brought up the fact that camera was a big issue. I think that's
It
the
was a
major
huge
issue
issue.
with Epic Mickey 1. Warren did say he said in this interview, and he said continuing forward, he said, "Look, I support my team 100%. I love what they did with the camera." That said, the day we ship this game is the day that we started working on a new camera system, and they've done quite a bit, from what I understand.
Yeah,
right?
they have absolutely, and they I guess I don't know if they're working from the ground up, but they're definitely aware of the problems they had,
Mm-hmm.
and being aware of it as soon as the game shipped. It's a bummer they weren't aware of it sooner, but they definitely had time to get it right, and so I'm definitely optimistic that it was because it was a problem in the first game.
Did you guys think it was that much of a problem?
It
I
was
didn't.
soup. Like by the time I got to the the Tomorrowland equivalent. I was just so frustrated with it.
I didn't find it that much of a problem, but it could be a generational thing. I mean, I'm used to the older games where, man, cameras were like, this would have been the
Really?
best camera ever in
it's a generational
1997.
thing?
You know what I mean?
I kinda look
I
at
don't understand a good
Totally.
camera.
Like, no, back in the old days of gaming, cameras were terrible. Try playing some like the first Mario 3D or something on the
Side-scrollers for
64.
most of them, so.
Yeah.
But like the first 3D games, like I Mario 64.
Oh, great camera.
That's what I'm saying. The camera was so bad on that.
No, it was
It was
good.
terrible.
It was good. You could go to like the Lakitu guy and then go back up and
Try
first
it.
person, third person. That was revolutionary.
Download it on your Wii and give it a try and
I
tell
have
me
it on
how
N64.
revolutionary it is. But because it is not. Wow, I
Yeah.
just got
You-
old school.
Yeah.
by Nicole.
Is this old school?
And your whole thing was about you
I
being
don't
old
know.
school.
I know exactly. I
So
take it
I'm
back.
more
Look,
manly and
I
I'm
remember
more
text
old.
adventures and there was no camera.
Yeah.
In
Changing
Zork,
my wheel in Oregon Trail was difficult because of the viewpoint.
I got dysentery every time.
But I agree with Steven. I mean, I didn't have as much of a problem with the camera, but I also I have a certain affinity for Disney and things like that. Like I had the same with Castlevania. I think it was Lord of Shadows, the newest Castlevania game. The camera was pretty in it, but it was a great Castlevania game. Finally, one that we hadn't seen in a while, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm cool with this camera. So I may have looked past, I think, a lot of the camera problems. That's the first thing he brought up when we did the interview was, look, we understand that the camera. I don't understand why the camera was that bad. But everybody told me it was bad, so I devoted this team to making it better. So it's obviously something that was a big deal. But they have addressed it, and in your notes here, Nicole, you said they've changed, or maybe I read it a little bit earlier. They've added like almost 1,000 changes to the camera for this title alone, which I don't even know what that means exactly.
Well, the big
but
thing
that's
is
a lot of stuff.
Left,
Yeah.
left.
In action,
left.
it means like you basically said you could play the whole game and never touch the camera. And we had a hands-on demo, and our writer did that. Like he played the whole demo and didn't touch the camera.
Yeah.
So
He actually said that one of the things he did when they were playtesting the game was he would sit in the room
Very creepy.
and stare at playtesters' hands to see if they touched like
Was
the
there
right
a
analog stick or
window,
whatever.
or-
No, he said he
I'm
would just
hoping
stare
he's
at their
right
hands.
here, right?
Could you
looking over his
imagine how
shoulder.
disturbing and disconcerting that would be having
Stop
Warren
looking at my hands,
Spector-
Mr. Spectre. Mr. Spectre, please.
Just your hands, though. No other part of your body. Just constantly.
Oh, he says.
It's true.
Hey, man, don't go
We're
there.
all human.
Phil Spector, maybe.
Phil Spector, and then he'd kill you for it. So what do you guys think? I mean, overall, do you think that, and again, it was surprising to see the amount of people that the first game already reached. It's multi-platform now. It does have, even though it's only local, it does have co-op. I assume it's going to reach a much broader audience now, but do you guys think that, what is the level of success they need to achieve for this to be a successful title? Because the numbers that he showed us meant that it was successful enough so that he got to do another game and make a musical, which, like, to Steven's point, pretty much just also goes at a very select audience. So what do they need to do? What are the sales numbers for them to consider this to be a success? What do you guys think?
Anything more than Epic Mickey was. I mean, I don't think you need to times whatever Epic Mickey did by 3 now that this is available to more platforms. But I think it's going to be a success. I think there's enough people with children and enough people that are Disney fans, platformer fans, or musical fans that this game, I think, is going to be a success.
Well, I think everyone who bought the first game,
Will
which
buy
was like
this
the
one.
one game you love for the Wii, they're all in. So that's you've already gotten back everything from the first game, and then the other consoles just open it up to all those people who are like, I really wanted to play it. I didn't have a Wii. I wish it was on my 360. Now you kind of get to have that first experience again, but now with a new game and stuff. So I think it's
it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Like,
Are
I
you
think it's
gonna
going
get
to
it
be
for your son?
huge. Yeah, I am going to get it for my son. It'd be perfect for he and I to play together. I mean, like, I think this game is going to be tremendous for that reason alone, because I want to play it and my kid will love it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And how many games come out? Like, there's so many games that Dex wants to play, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, do we have to?
Right.
And then so many games that we
Ben
can't play
10,
together that I know I don't want to play the Ben 10 game.
I think this is a great example of what the local co-op, how it can be effective, because it's drop in, drop out. He can sit there and watch you, but every once in a while, if he wants to drop in and help, he can. So I think that attitude right there is probably what Warren Spector was going for. So I hope he watches this and appreciates this and none of the bad things we said about his first
Right,
game.
like-
Because we love you.
Like
Also
the
the way,
camera angle's
also the
okay.
way women stop by his house and he murders them. Like, he does. Oh wait, that's Phil Spector.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Their hair is so remarkably
I told
similar.
You, it gets confusing.
It's very true.
I warned you all.
You did. We should pay more attention to you.
I know.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned. All right, let's talk about another game that will definitely do well this year. It's had a tremendous amount of hype since GDC and even before then, but really since the stuff started leaking out of GDC, Assassin's Creed 3. Nicole, we got a lot of new information about that. So
on Monday, Jake actually posted a preview from was it Adam Rosenberg, one of our writers. for the new features in Assassin's Creed 3, it's something that I know we touched upon it, a few weeks ago, but this episode I want to talk about the more historical aspects of the game. I was reading the preview up on g4tv.com/previews.
Nice one.
One thing that really stood out to me was that the developers wanted you to feel like a historical tourist. And I just thought that was such an amazing concept that I get to be a tourist during the American Revolution. So you get to experience the Battle of Bunker Hill, George Washington signing the Declaration of Independence. And there are things that you get to feel like you're a part of. You don't have the option to kill George Washington. That'd be cool, like if you could kill people. And
Just
then
like
right as
Hitler,
they're about to
like if
start.
Hitler was
End
in
the
this game
sequence.
somehow, it'd be cool to kill him. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
But
and George Washington was Hitler, okay? Power to the people.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
I'm sorry.
We'll need a lot more time for
I
you to
don't-
connect those
see,
two dots.
I don't
and we
even-
don't have that
This
amount
is
of
one
time.
of those times
I'm not
where you
sure.
say things,
Right.
and then afterwards you're like, how do I explain that?
Yeah.
It doesn't. I can't.
You don't have to.
I won't even start
That's
to try
what
because
crazy
it doesn't
Sometimes I
make any
just say
sense.
things for
That's
no
what
reason.
insane people say.
You're right. You're right.
It's interesting that you say that you're. I don't necessarily I don't usually hear the phrase. I'm really excited to be a tourist in the American
history.
Revolution. This is a
History.
very exciting thing.
It is.
But you're right. I mean, they did say at GDC when we talked about him, and Jake was there. We spent a lot of time together at GDC,
We did.
didn't we?
Anything you guys want to tell us?
God, it was
Any
nice.
announcements that you want to make?
If he could get pregnant, he would be. You know what I mean? But science ain't there yet.
Who's to say
Probably George Washington's fault, or maybe Hitler's. We don't know. But we did spend quite a bit of time together at GC. Now that I think about it. But they did say that one of the interesting things about developing this game is that they know where all of these figures were. It's been very documented that this is where Washington was. This is where all the other guys were. And so being able to craft a story around these very real events was both challenging, but also a lot more fun for them to develop because they can now have people experience these events. But the Battle of Bunker Hill is a great example of, I think, blending the two, in that you can kind of walk up and see this guy's pep speech, basically telling these guys, we're going to have you form a bunch of lines and walk directly into gunfire. Most of you are going to die, but do it for your country. And you got to see that, but you didn't get to directly affect it, but then you kind of wove in and out of it. And so it's pretty cool what they're doing with it.
It's like going to one of those events where they reenact famous battles.
Like
And-
Civil War
Yeah,
reenactors.
yeah.
Only not nearly as depressing.
Yeah.
But not nearly as depressing,
That's
and
it.
that's the real message here.
You
It's
mean
also
they're-
really cool because they're all events that everyone in America is very familiar with, just from
Required to
school,
learn.
from the stuff that
Social
you're required to
studies.
learn. So it's all stuff that we'll go, oh yeah, that thing, that's so awesome. Oh
That's
yeah,
where money comes from.
Washington crossing the Delaware. How amazing is that?
And I think that probably fed into their need to want to reach a broader audience. Pulling great people from the other Assassin's Creed titles and making them work on this asking them to work on this in secret.
We'll pay you a lot of money to work on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they worked on that. But I think they said it was important. Like, yes, the other environments were amazing, but people in America, we don't necessarily care about the history of that as much as we care about stuff like the American Revolution. So I think this is their way of really
We're
engaging.
narcissists.
Very much
They're going
so.
to cater
Yes.
to that.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I
we
have
are.
to imagine that the people in Constantinople really don't care what Washington was doing at the Battle of Bunker Hill. So,
Fair.
it is what it is. But I think it also fed into the development of the game. I think when you say
Yeah.
that this setting was more driven by the fans' desire to have something they can relate to.
Yeah, and I think what you said before is really interesting. This idea of them having to balance knowing exactly where everybody is, because that's something they've never had to deal with before. Like they've had this kind of broad history that has a lot of gray areas in it. So now
was
where
Da
they could
Vinci
kind of play with
actually
it.
in Italy? Like, I mean, I guess they know that much.
That's it. But was he making cannonballs, like cannons and flying machines? I guess so.
Did he
Steve, you
have
were
such
around back
nice
then. What do you
hair?
think?
Yeah,
Were you there? What was going on with Leo?
Well, listen, I
you guys
was
would hang
good
out on
friends
Thursday,
Was
right? Play
he
bridge?
there?
I was good friends with Benjamin Franklin.
Ah, okay.
And he apparently is not going to be the guy who provides you with all the weapons and tech like you might think,
He was in
because he
France.
was in
He was
France most of the time. But I was thinking that, like, this is going to be interesting politically because you're half Native American, and at the time, the Native Americans were not on the colonist side for the most part. They were mostly on the British side.
And the Mohawk,
Well, he's
which
half
he is
British
half.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's half Mohawk, which supported the British, I believe, and then he's also half British.
Right.
But in every picture, he's killing the British. So I'm thinking the assassins play by their own rules. Is what
Yeah.
I'm
That's
That's it.
thinking.
Everything is permitted. That's it.
Nothing
And
is
and
true.
it, and it makes sense, like, from a historical perspective too, that like an assassin would be hired by the American side because they were using non-traditional
don't
warfare
think
because
he's
they had
hired.
to.
They're above everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean,
think-
they have no allegiance.
And correct me if I'm
Well,
wrong.
no,
but
but
I think that in the conversation we had, they're going to show you this guy Connor's backstory. But something happens to his village, I believe,
When he's a
that
child.
that drives him to join the assassins, kind of operate on his own. Methinks that American British soldiers probably ran into each other in the village
Right,
at some
at his
point,
village.
and I think maybe I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it was.
What is this?
This is nothing sexual.
Okay.
I know that much.
All right.
This is just an indicator that sometimes things collide. But
Atoms.
but I think that's what it's more about, like what happens with him growing up, and less about what his personal political.
I think it's that, and I also think the Templars are involved from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know how much he wants to be an assassin versus how much he wants to kick Templar ass.
Yeah.
So I think
Which is
it's
the
a-
ultimate struggle of the
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
series.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, because the Templars are ultimately what's after Desmond, which, to break away from the history, this game will have more Desmond scenes than any of the other Assassin's games, which I hope they do something cool with, because Desmond's a super boring character.
Until he calls Penny from the boat, and then it's awesome.
It's not your boat.
It's a lost reference.
I got it.
Oh, okay. I don't know sometimes. Did you
It's
get
not
it?
your boat. Because you write
It's not
it
your
here,
boat.
and then you put it on
Oh.
the window, and
On
then
the
you
glass.
die.
And then it blows up.
No, that was the whatchamacallit? Charlie, right? Didn't Charlie do that?
It's not Penny's boat.
God, that was a beautiful time.
I cried a little.
It was a good time for all of us, I think.
Musical theater and this.
Oh man,
This is a heartwarming.
Can we
You're
hug?
growing.
This,
Can we
this is
just
a
have
growing pains episode.
a big
of-
hug and
of what
just
this
cry?
is.
Emphasis
One
on the
another?
pain.
Yeah, definitely. Nicole, you also have here in all caps extreme canoeing.
You know,
What does that mean?
Well,
Yeah,
That's
we went to the
weird.
extreme.
Some of the screenshots show Connor canoeing, and I was hoping Jake could elaborate on extreme canoeing.
Jake, did
Jake?
they
You
speak
can't just
to the
add extreme to everything and expect me to explain it. I saw him in the canoe as well. Did
on,
not
play
jump
it
to
up a little.
extreme.
It was commonplace canoeing. It was not extreme in any way.
It's very professional, very controlled canoeing. I think is what's happening.
Everything's permitted, Jake. Extreme,
Extreme
canoeing's
canoeing
permitted.
should be permitted. This
Yeah.
is true. No, I think it's just another way for you to kind of traverse the frontier and stuff. So a lot of options.
So you'll be able to actually
You
canoe.
will canoe.
Yeah.
Maybe and shoot things with your bow and arrow from the canoe.
I know hunting's
Come on.
going to be a big
That's
part
pretty
of this.
extreme.
It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
I don't
I'm not
know.
a huge fan of hunting. When I worked at Best Buy, I would hide the Cabela's Big Game Hunter games.
I was seeing
That
I
was you.
I hid
yeah.
them. Mhm.
Why?
That was why I never played those games ever.
Yeah, no, it's.
Did you not
that was a
like Big
bigger
Buck
issue.
Hunter or
No, not
you
a
know?
fan.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't hurt any animals. It was okay in Red Dead.
Because they're not real animals.
You
so
know, I know.
that's the
It's just
thing.
People-
a thing up there.
people
that,
fine.
It's fine with people, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
There's
so-
contradictions in your
Weird-
philosophy is what we're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
say.
weird
No,
distinctions
this
you
is,
make.
there's some flashbacks going through my head I need to get through right now.
Did Best Buy at any point were you like the the lost leader for Big Game Hunter? Like Cabela, did
Were
Cabela
you
call
the
your store
worst
and be like?
employee ever?
I was a pretty good employee.
But did Cabela call like store 772 and go, I don't understand why you're moving far less copies of Big Game Hunter than every other store?
There
Like-
were
like,
some questions about
Get
story
me
mode
the
merchandise.
vomit on the phone.
Also, where would you hide them? What's the best place to hide a Big Game Hunter game?
In the back, behind boxes or something, or behind like PS2s.
Oh, so you wouldn't even put it out in the store for people to buy. You
If
would
they
literally
were-
keep. We would put it in the back of the
If
store.
that was an option, definitely. If I was already out on the floor, then I would hide it behind some PS2s.
You are just a
'Cause PS3
terrible
was
employee.
out by then.
Wow.
But I was helping
Nobody.
No, I was helping
you were
nobody.
taking money
I'm
from people
selfish.
that.
I'm selfish and I'm obsessed with saving animals.
That's an extraordinary story.
Wow.
But the point was, in Assassin's Creed 3, if you kill a bear with a shotgun, you can't use its pelt because there's too many holes in it.
Yeah, but you can
Just like real
you
life.
can't stab it in the face though,
And
which
that's
we learned.
That's preferred
Right.
if you want to
Exactly.
use its, materials.
Much more humane.
Does anyone
Well,
know the
no.
statute of limitations on hiding video games in
You
the
know,
back of a store
as
so
I'm
they
Yeah,
can't
'cause they
sell?
can still
if
be
Best Buy
there.
watches this,
It might
they'll
still
be
be
there
at
right
that
now.
store.
Yeah.
You hurt their bottom line quite a bit.
Yeah, I plead the fifth. Can I do that now? Is that too late?
No.
Somebody's
You owe
gonna
them.
somebody's gonna
You're
open
done.
that door like right now. Like there's
In
some
a
back
blue
room that they
polo
didn't
with
know about. And all of a
khakis.
sudden it's there.
Mr. Best Buy.
Get back to work,
Yeah.
Zavalish, and stock those Cabela's Big Game Hunters.
I won't
I'm
do
being
it.
your boss and pretending
Yeah.
that that's.
God, use that boss voice all the time from now on.
It will. It's very sexy.
That's the voice of a man that's going to die from throat cancer in 3 years. Is what that is.
I love video games.
What's this crafting MMO that we have here as well?
Well, it's Salem.
Because I like crafting.
Salem is an MMO. It's going to go into beta, I think, next month.
Mm-hmm.
It is based on Salem, the witch trials for witchcraft. It has this very cartoony look, which
I don't want to incriminate anybody, so I'm going to put witchcraft in quotes.
Hey, so
Which
Allegedly
if he
witching.
floats, I mean, what was I saying? Okay, so it has a really cartoony look to it, which is supposed to be like a juxtaposition to how dark this game is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very dark game. There are ancient creatures that want to kill you all the time, and there's permadeath. If your character dies, you can't regen your character. Your character is done. So it's It's
So as if there weren't more reasons why you should want to play it.
yeah,
Right.
There you go.
It's pretty hardcore. I mean,
But it
it's not
is
for
free
the
to
Angry
play.
Birds
I mean, that's where the balance
true.
is, right? It's
You
like,
could
yeah,
buy
you could
Pilgrim
die
hats.
forever, but it's free, so why would
I'm
you?
sure you
keep
can
it?
buy like a resurrection stone. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but permadeath is. I think it's kind of
It's
a
pretty
cool
hardcore.
thing.
Kinda
Like,
respect
it's
that.
Kinda metal.
it's
I like it.
awesome in a way. And I
In
was
a-
reading a little bit about the way
in a
like they'll
way.
deal with like PvP and crimes against communities. Like basically you're a marked person after that and everybody else has some incentive to kill you and death really means something. So there's this huge incentive not to commit crimes, which I really like because it's
Wow.
player enforced and it's not
just
it's
like
not
in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're Phil
There,
Spector.
there is. I mean, yeah.
He's in jail, right?
Yeah, the pretty big incentive
I
not
thought you
to,
said he was a witch.
not to have
Yeah.
hurt someone.
He's a duck.
I do like that. I do like that.
Warren
But,
Spector got away with it though, and he's making epic Mickey.
And he's out running around making games.
well, we all know how dark those old cartoons were, right? It was only, I mean, we should have seen
were
the signs.
creepy.
Oh,
yeah, very
they're-
much so.
They're terrifying.
Oh, the
Yeah.
cows?
And plus, you guys have talked to Warren Spector? I mean,
Murderer.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the dude just oozes sociopath.
the nicest, most
radiates
warm
horror.
human being on
Yeah.
earth.
He really
Seriously,
is.
literally.
He's not gonna
If
go
everyone
wrong,
in the
you guys.
world was Warren Spector,
No, he is
like,
like-
it would be the most
Imagine
wonderful
like
world.
he is a substitute math teacher. Like that's
Mhm.
the level
Yeah,
he's
of
the
like
Like, you know, all he's gonna
nicety
do
and
is-
just like warmth.
You
It's
you
crazy.
know that your math teacher's out, and this guy shows up,
And
and
he
he says
rolls
a
in
couple
a
nice
TV.
things. He rolls in a TV, and then you guys watch the first Matrix movie, and instead of doing math, and you're like, "This is the best teacher of all time."
God, I remember
But
that.
those old things were he showed Jake and I. They have a museum down in Austin where they're showing all this memorabilia. He's got one of the largest private collections of Disney memorabilia, from what I understand, in the country, or maybe even in the world. But they found this Oswald the Rabbit cartoon that they're showing down there at this presentation. And they just found it. It's like 60 years old or something like that. There's been like 10 people in the world that have seen it. But this cartoon, I'm not kidding. It's like Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah.
Like the cartoons back then were just terrible. Like Oswald takes this cow, or the cow takes Oswald and does these terrible. I'm talking like pull its eyeballs out, pull its spinal cord out of its rectum. Like this happened in Disney cartoons in the 50s and 60s.
Oswald don't play.
Oswald do not play, man.
All right, I'm back on board for Disney and Mickey too.
So, so what I'm saying here is that Warren Spector could indeed be a murderer because he likes that stuff. I'm just saying. I'm reading into things here. Whatever.
all right, well,
All right.
I'm gonna try to get us back on track a little bit.
One more historical game, very historical. Gettysburg Armored Warfare.
Yeah. So this, I just wanted to, ask you guys what you guys think about video games that they base it on history, but then they add mechs, and then they add turrets.
Always awesome.
So this game is Gettysburg Armored Warfare. It is a hybrid multiplayer third-person shooter. It's available on Steam as of, I believe, today. It's going to teach you a lot about the Battle of Gettysburg.
You're gonna fail every history course.
I would love to see those essays though. That
What
would be
if they
incredible.
just put in just enough actual historical information in there that this could pass for education?
That's no.
Isn't that possible?
I think the mechs kind of make
No,
that.
no. Just make a little discllaimer in the beginning. Everything in here is
Everything
accurate,
mech-related
except
except
the
the mechs.
following.
Except these mechs, yeah.
I just feel like we're bordering on a place where we can have games that actually teach you things. Like the Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail.
That shaped your life, Steve Johnson.
I will tell you that
Because he
I-
lived on the
on
Oregon
the
Trail.
Oregon Trail.
I think he
I've
shapes
made it across
he shapes
Oregon.
the game more.
He did not die of dysentery.
But I think that everybody who played the Oregon Trail knows more about the passage to Oregon than they did before, because I mean, it really did teach you and make you think about that in a way that you might not have had you never played that game.
Or you probably wouldn't even have cared before.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, to these people this was an epic adventure on the par with anything that we enjoy in literature or other video games or
Or
anything
we can
like
make
that.
our
I mean,
own salted meats.
yeah,
It
exactly.
teaches you how much meat you can take places.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Especially if
exactly.
it's across the river.
And how to
thousands
salt
of
it.
pounds.
See, I feel like you'd still be able to learn that lesson if you also had a mech on the Oregon Trail.
See, maybe the Oregon Trail Armored Warfare is next.
I
One
think
could only hope.
I think that most historical games, like the more historically accurate they get, the less fun
That's
they
possible.
are. Because, like,
Possible.
if you think about a World War I game where you spent the entire time in a trench fighting for like 4 feet of like German mud,
Yeah.
Wait,
that
and
would
then
be
dying
World War
of
I.
mustard
That's it.
poison.
Well, then
Yeah,
you
exactly.
get Trenched, the Double Fine game
See?
that
Yeah.
adds mechs to that.
So the
Just
lesson
add mechs.
here is that
You
mech
guys!
games,
Mech-
mechs make every game better.
makes history
and should be-
awesome.
Yeah, there
I
you
hope
go.
that if there's a World War III, we're wise enough to get mechs in it because
Robot Jocks, you guys. It's going to happen. Don't worry about it. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's the best / worst robot movie of all time.
wait, what's it called?
Robot Jocks.
No.
With an
What?
X.
What the jo-
Are you kidding me?
Seriously?
We'll have a G4 screening at
Okay.
my house.
Fair enough.
It'll be all good. Jess will love that, I'm sure. All right, before we go, I want to get to one fan feedback question. Nicole, you got 3 great ones here, but I know Ender Wiggin is taking a break from saving the galaxy by playing a video game. So let's ask this question that Ender Wiggin has. The Assassin's Creed series is all of human history as a playground for its lore. With that in mind, what time periods or historical events would you want to see the series cover or put its unique spin on?
Back before Assassin's Creed 3 was announced, they did a survey, and one of the things that they listed as a possibility was Egypt. And there was also a few months prior to that, there was like this leaked screenshot, which actually turned out to be crap, but was a pyramid. And so I've always really hoped that the Assassin's Creed series or any series would cover ancient Egypt.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve?
I like Ender Wiggins' suggestion of Victorian England.
Yeah, the architecture
Way to be
alone, I think, would
creative,
be.
Steve.
And I mean, I'm just saying, like that's a great suggestion. Or World War One, you know, the entire thing in a trench.
With mechs?
Yeah.
You're learning,
Yeah.
Steve.
No mechs. Just,
That was my answer. The part of the Battle of Gettysburg that people don't know about, where mechs were involved, that would be really cool to see in the Assassin's Creed
History
series.
books, guys.
Yeah,
Or
'cause
any
people
game.
don't really know about that, really. But I think the environment inventory, I mean, Ender, I think you have a great suggestion here. The environment alone, I think, just leaping over that architecture would be really cool. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, I like that one. And I would also like to see like a 1930s like Chicago or like a 1890s
I
ish
like
like
it.
World Fair
Yeah.
Chicago-y place too. Because I love those settings and running around that environment would be great.
prehistorical assassin,
Or-
caveman assassin.
Caveman-
Like,
Very dull.
You just
Assassin-
want this game to be the most boring thing. You can either fight for 4 feet of mud in Germany, or you can club a mammoth
Yeah,
over the head
and-
repeatedly and then pull it back to your cave.
like the big technological thing that you discover is a stick.
But can it be like cavemen with mechs?
He has it on his wrist.
I got it.
It's a
You've
big
got the
club on his
Neanderthal,
arm.
Benjamin Franklin, just constantly hitting flints together. One day this will be something. Then he
Like,
presents
sharp
you with a
edge.
whole wheel. Now I have this wheel. That'd be kind of good, I think. I would love to see even a modern day Brazil. I mean, could you imagine an assassin like going through the favelas? I mean, I think that'd be cool, leaping over all of those buildings.
I've never
And
been to Brazil.
Sometimes if
me
you
either,
see
but I
it-
saw
you'll see it
Fast
in Max
5,
Payne.
so yeah, and you'll see it in Max Payne, which I know is a big part of the game. The
But
environment.
when you take historical games like Call of Juarez that was awesome in number 2, and then you bring it to the modern day, sometimes it doesn't work out. Like
Doesn't work.
in
Right.
Well, it's
Because you can't
I don't
kill
wanna say
Union
it's
soldiers as
accurate.
Confederate soldiers. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you
Unless you have
that
mechs.
way.
finding who you can kill is kind of easier in historical context than it is in like modern day context, you know, because you can't just wholesale slaughter too many groups of people in
Right.
the modern world
Just
without it being really creepy. You
if
know?
they've already been wholesale slaughtered,
oh yeah,
it's totally
Look,
okay
it
to do
already
again.
happened.
Following the
Hey,
path
they're
of
redcoats.
history.
Like,
Yeah,
the
it's
redcoats,
history.
they're
It's
super
history.
bad.
We're teaching.
Hitler and Wolfenstein,
Yeah.
you know, they're Nazis.
And by the way,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to George Washington comparing you to Hitler, Mr.
You can't say you can't
If you're out there, Mr.
retroactively-
Washington.
I can. I love America. I'm a great patriot. I
Yeah.
think anybody would tell you that. I fought in Nam.
One of his deep descendants is gritting their wooden teeth together in anger at you right now.
Damn you, Johnson! We'll destroy you.
On that note, you guys, thank you so much for being here. As usual, Steve Johnson closing out the way it should be closed out,
Making everyone else uncomfortable?
making everyone else uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Did my job. Going home.
No, you're not.
So
It's only noon.
moving
It's not
forward,
noon.
and I believe that this is the case. I know that a lot of you guys have been talking about this on the internet. We are going to be talking about Mass Effect 3's ending in a future episode of Feedback. We're just trying to make sure everybody has enough chance to finish the game, us as well, so that we can all really get a good idea. And we don't want to spoil anything for anybody. So we are going to address that, you guys. I promise. Nicole, do we know when that will be?
Yeah, let's talk about it next week.
We're going to talk about
You
it
guys
next
have
week.
a week to beat the game.
The
Then
Mass
no complaints.
Yeah, which will be totally fine. That means for you, Steven, you got 3 games to play in 1 week. So have fun with that.
I've
bro.
already beaten it. Come on.
No, you haven't.
It's true. It's a lie. But thank you guys for being here. We're going to talk about that next week. As usual, this episode will be up every single week, g4tv.com/feedback.
Woo!